Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a piece of history that, honestly, when you look at it now, it feels almost mythological. The scale of it, just staggering. But it absolutely happened 107 years ago this December.
That's right. We're diving into the Halifax explosion of 1917.
And it's such a critical story because this wasn't, an enemy attack or some kind of planned sabotage. This was the world's biggest man-made blast before the atomic bomb.
Yeah, pre-atomic age, absolutely the largest.
And it happened because of, well, a chain of errors, avoidable mistakes, really, and maybe a kind of a psychological blind spot.
I think that's a really important part of it. Our sources really paint this picture of Halifax, Nova Scotia, December 6, 1917. It's this incredibly busy port city.
Wartime, right. The population had exploded to nearly 60,000 people.
Exactly. It was the nerve center for Allied shipping. Everything funneled through the troops, supplies heading across the Atlantic to Europe. It was the gateway.
Which leads us to that idea you mentioned, the normalization of danger, that psychological armor. What did that actually look like for people living there?
Well, you have to imagine the harbor. It's just packed constantly, like a forest of masts and smokestacks, troop carriers, supply ships, and yes, ships absolutely loaded with munitions, explosives.
So danger was visible everywhere.
Everywhere. But because it was always there, every single day, every hour, it just faded into the background. It became routine. And that routine bred this really dangerous complacency.
The risk just wasn't registering anymore.
Exactly. People got so used to seeing these potentially catastrophic ships that they started to feel fundamentally safe. Like, oh, the war's over there in Europe. It can't touch us here. They built this wall in their minds.
Because nothing bad had happened yet.
Precisely. That it hasn't happened, so it won't happen mindset. That sense of invulnerability.
And that sense of safety was about to be just annihilated. Because the Western Front, in all its destructive power, was literally about to arrive in their harbor in a single blinding flash.
Yeah. So our mission today in this deep dive is to unpack how that happened, not just the explosion itself, but the how. How did specific human choices, these rigid decisions, turn what should have been a minor collision?
A low speed bump.
Exactly, into a 2.9 kiloton catastrophe, and beyond that, into this unprecedented medical crisis that literally changed Canada forever.
Okay, let's ground this. Before the chaos, there was just Thursday morning. Let's start with someone specific, Patrick Vincent Coleman.
Coleman's story is so important because he's our connection to that ordinary life. He's 45, a dispatcher for the Canadian Government Railway, lives in Richmond, a working-class neighborhood right near the harbor.
Just a regular guy.
Totally regular. Said goodbye to his wife, Frances, that morning. 4 kids. Janita, she was 13, Gerald 11, Eleanor 7, and little Aileen, just 1 year old.
And the details about his wallet, they're so normal.
We really are. He had raffle tickets for victory bonds. Everyone was buying those. And a clipping about a railway union meeting he was maybe planning to attend in Montreal. Just the everyday stuff of a working man's life.
Headed off for a normal shift. And that normality was reflected across the city.
Oh, absolutely. Like at St. Joseph's School, which was quite close to where the explosion would happen, about 400 kids were just finishing morning prayers.
And there was that detail about the school schedule.
Yeah, it's quite poignant. The boys' school had actually burned down the year before, so they were sharing the building. The girls used it in the morning, the boys in the afternoon.
So on that particular morning,
it just happened to be the girls' turn inside the classrooms. A small detail, but chilling when you think about how location and sheer timing determined who lived and who died.
The whole city was just operating on its usual rhythm. The waterfront was everything, the economy, jobs.
Lived and died by the harbor.
But that reliance, that familiarity, it masked the danger. They just didn't see it coming, didn't see the two ships heading towards each other in the Narrows.
Right. So let's look at these two ships. Very different destinies converging in that narrow channel. First, you've got the SS Mont-Blanc.
The source of it all.
She was French, an older ship, kind of slow, a tramp steamer built way back in 1899. Nothing special about her structure.
But her cargo, that was something else entirely.
Oh, yeah. She was quite literally a floating bomb. Her captain, Aimé Lemedec, he knew the risks. He was strict, absolutely no smoking, no matches, no booze allowed anywhere on board.
Because what was she carrying? Let's break that down.
Okay, the payload was immense. First, 2,366.5 tons of picric acid. Now, picric acid is tricky stuff, stable if handled right, but if it gets damp or contacts metal, it becomes incredibly volatile, way more powerful than TNT.
And she had TNT too.
Yep, 250 tons of TNT, plus over 62 tons of gun cotton, which is another highly flammable explosive.
And the stuff on deck. the benzol.
Ah, yes, the benzol, 246 tons of it in barrels just sitting right there on the deck. Benzol is basically high-octane fuel, think liquid dynamite, hugely flammable, highly volatile.
So you add all that up.
You get the equivalent explosive power of 2.9 kilotons of TNT, just an unbelievable concentration of chemical energy packed into one old ship.
And she was trying to be inconspicuous.
Deliberately. Because of the German U-boats active in the Atlantic, Captain Lemedek wasn't flying the standard red flag that signals dangerous cargo.
So nobody in the harbor knew what was inside her.
No idea. She looked like any other tramp steamer. She was a lethal ghost, basically. She'd been delayed getting into the harbor the night before because the anti-submarine nets closed. Now she was finally heading in, guided by a local harbor pilot, Francis Mackey.
And Mackey knew his stuff.
Oh, absolutely. 24 years on the job, spotless record. Deeply respected. He knew the harbor like the back of his hand.
Okay, so that's the Mont-Blanc, the invisible threat. What about the other ship, the SS 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄?
The 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄 was quite different. Norwegian vessel, chartered for Belgian relief efforts, so technically on a humanitarian mission. But she was heading out of the harbor, going to New York to pick up supplies.
And she had a problem, a physical flaw for navigating these tight waters.
A major one. She was in ballast, meaning she was empty, no cargo, so she was riding really high in the water.
Why is that a problem?
Because when a ship rides that high, its propeller and its rudder are often only half submerged. This makes steering incredibly difficult, sluggish, and unpredictable, especially at lower speeds or when you need to maneuver quickly. She was just unwieldy.
And her captain, Håkon From, wasn't exactly relaxed.
Not at all. Sources say he was frustrated, angry even. He'd been delayed getting his coal shipment the day before, missed the window to leave before the subnets closed. So he was behind schedule and really anxious to get going.
That impatience translated to speed.
Definitely. He was pushing it well over the harbor speed limit.
And who was guiding the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄?
Another experienced local pilot, William Hayes, 40 years old, married, father of 5 young kids.
So you have this slow, heavy, hidden bomb creeping in and this light, awkward, speeding ship trying to get out.
Both guided by experienced pilots, both heading straight for the narrowest choke point in the harbor. The Narrows.
Right. The Narrows, this is where it all goes wrong. The basic rule of the sea, like driving a car.
Keep to your right, starboard side.
And the Mont-Blanc, the inbound ship with the explosives.
Pilot Mackey was doing exactly that, hugging the Dartmouth shore on his correct side of the channel. Textbook navigation.
But the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄.
The 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄 was coming out on the wrong side. She was in the Mont-Blanc's lane. Apparently, she'd swung over to the left, the Halifax side, to avoid some other anchored ships or incoming traffic further up.
And she was going too fast.
Way too fast. Over 7 knots. The harbor speed limit was 5 knots. Captain From's impatience, you know.
So Mackey, on the Mont-Blanc, sees this ship coming at him in his lane, going too fast. He tries to communicate using the ship's whistle.
Yeah, this is the dialogue of whistles, this fatal conversation. Mackey gives one short blast. Universal signal. I am holding my course to starboard. You should pass me port to port. He's asserting the rule.
He's saying, I'm following the law, get out of my way.
Basically, yes. But the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄, under pilot Hayes, responds with 2 short blasts.
Which means?
It means, I intend to pass you starboard to starboard. Essentially, I'm staying on this side, you move. It was a direct refusal to comply with the rules and with the Mont-Blanc signal.
Wow, so a direct challenge.
A total standoff. Mackey signals again. 1 blast. I'm staying course. Hayes signaled back 2 blasts. So am I.
This is incredible, like a game of chicken with massive ships, one of them loaded with explosives.
It was exactly that. Sources describe it as a clash of professional wills.
Yeah.
They both likely thought they were right, or maybe just too stubborn to back down to lose face or lose time.
Were people watching this?
Oh, yeah. Sailors on other ships nearby, they stopped working. They could sense something was wrong. They just watched this unfold, this argument playing out in steam whistles.
It's terrifying because they're both locked into their logic, following the rules or their interpretation of the rules right up until the moment it's too late.
That inflexibility is key. By the time both captains finally ordered their engines stopped or put into reverse, it was too late. Momentum took over, especially the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄's momentum from speeding.
What were the final maneuvers?
Mackey, on the Mont-Blanc, realizing a collision was likely, made a desperate choice. He ordered a hard turn to port to the left. He was hoping to maybe swing across the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄's bow or at least minimize the impact. He couldn't just slam on the brakes or run aground. The risk of detonating the cargo was too high.
And the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄, what did Captain From do?
This was the catastrophic move.
Yeah.
At almost the exact same moment, Captain From ordered full reverse.
Why was that so bad?
because of how the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄 was built and loaded. She was light, in ballast. Her single propeller, a right-hand screw, when thrown into reverse like that, didn't just slow the ship down. It acted like a thruster, kicking the ship's bow sharply to starboard, hard to the right.
Directly into the path of the turning Mont-Blanc.
Directly. Unavoidably.
So the collision itself, was it a huge crash?
Actually, no. It happened around 8:45 a.m., and the impact speed was really low, just over 1 knot, barely moving. The 𝐃𝐈𝐈's prow just sort of sliced into the Mont-Blanc's forward hold, number 1 hold, on the starboard side. Made about a 9-foot gash above the waterline. Relatively minor damage, phonetically speaking.
But it was enough.
It was a spark, literally. That impact, gentle as it was enough to knock over those barrels of benzol stacked on the Mont-Blanc's deck.
The liquid dynamite.
Exactly. It spilled down through the damaged deck plating, likely into the hold where the gash was.
And then the 𝐃𝐈𝐈 backed away.
Still in reverse, yeah. As the 𝐃𝐈𝐈 pulled its steel prow out of the Mont-Blanc steel hull, the friction, the grinding metal, it created sparks. A shower of white-hot sparks.
Right onto the spilled benzol.
Instant ignition.
Yeah.
The Mont-Blanc wasn't just a ship on fire. It became, in that instant, the biggest, fastest-burning fuse the world had ever seen.
Captain Limedeck and Pilot Mackey, they must have known immediately.
Oh, they knew. They knew exactly what they were standing on, a ticking time bomb. They didn't hesitate. Order given. Abandoned ship. All 40 crew members into the lifeboats now. They rowed for shore. Rowed desperately for the Dartmouth side, the side away from the main city. And as they rowed, they were screaming warnings, trying to wave off tugboats, other ships that were turning towards the fire thinking they could help.
What were they yelling?
In French, mostly. Elle va exploser. The ship is going to explode.
But the warnings didn't get through.
This is just heartbreaking. Think about it. A busy Canadian harbor, wartime. Lots of noise, lots of activity. Their French warnings shouted over the water. They were misunderstood, maybe dismissed as panic, or just completely lost in the general chaos.
The men who knew the city's fate were trying to sound the alarm, but couldn't make themselves understood.
Effectively voiceless in that critical moment.
So what happened next? The ship was just burning.
Yes. This is what historians call the fatal spectacle. It lasted for about 20 minutes, from the collision around 8:45 a.m. until the explosion at 9:04 a.m.
20 minutes.
20 minutes, where the burning abandoned Mont-Blanc drifted slowly across the channel. It bumped up against Pier 6, right in the heart of the Richmond district, densely populated, lots of wooden buildings, factories.
And the fire grew.
Fed by the benzol, then it caught the wooden pier itself. It became this enormous, almost hypnotic column of fire. Eyewitnesses, like Judge Benjamin Russell, described it not as just smoke and flames, but this pillar of shifting colors. Oranges, reds, yellows, rising thousands of feet into the clear blue morning sky. It must have been strangely beautiful.
Beautiful and deadly, because the city stopped to watch.
This is the crucial human element that multiplied the tragedy. That normalization of danger we talked about, it kicked in. People weren't panicked. They were fascinated.
Spectator.
Thousands of them. Factory workers came out of their buildings. People stopped on the street. Trams slowed down. And all across Halifax and Dartmouth, in homes, offices, schools, people went to the windows. They pressed their faces right up against the glass to get a better look at this incredible sight.
Looking right at the bomb.
Completely unaware. There's that story, maybe apocryphal, maybe true, about the Catholic schools, that the nuns, being strict, kept the children in their seats, away from the windows.
And those kids suffered fewer eye injuries.
That's the claim, because they weren't looking directly at the blast when it happened. It shows how that simple human act of curiosity, wanting to see the spectacle, put thousands of people directly in harm's way.
While the city watched, mesmerized, someone did understand the danger. Back near Pier 6, Vince Coleman.
Right, Coleman, the railway dispatcher. His little wooden station was just a few hundred feet from where the Mont-Blanc was burning against Pier 6. Suddenly, a sailor bursts in, probably one of the Mont-Blanc crew, maybe someone who spoke some English.
What did he say?
He screamed the warning, "That ship is full of explosives, it's gonna blow!"
So Coleman knew.
He knew. He and his colleague, William Lovett, started to run, get away. But then Coleman stopped.
Why?
The dispatcher brain kicked in. He realized. Train number 10. The overnight express from St. John, New Brunswick. It was due any minute, around 8:55 a.m.
Carrying how many people?
About 300 passengers. And its track ran right alongside the harbor, right past Pier 6. It was scheduled to arrive directly into the kill zone.
Oh, my God.
In that moment, Coleman had to choose. Save himself or save the train.
And he chose the train.
He turned around, ran back into the station, back towards the burning ship. He sat down at his telegraph key.
The only way to send a fast warning back then.
Exactly. And he started tapping out that message, the message that saved hundreds of lives.
Do we know exactly what it said?
We do. It was received down the line, clear, concise, and absolutely gut-wrenching. Hold up the train. Ammunition ship afire in harbor, making for Pier 6, and will explode. Guess this will be my last message. Goodbye, boys.
Guess this will be my last message. He knew.
He knew. And the message worked. Train number 10 was stopped safely outside the city at Rockingham Station. Every single person on board was saved because of Coleman.
What about his colleague, the one who ran with him initially?
That was William Lovett. Coleman told him to run, to get out. Lovett survived. There's also another story about a colleague named Ralph Fielding, whom Coleman had told earlier to go home after his shift. He was saved too. Coleman stayed. A true hero.
And then the 20 minutes were up, 9.04 and 35 seconds a.m.
The fire reached the main cargo. Picric acid, TNT, gun cotton.
What happened? Describe the blast.
Instantaneous. Utter annihilation. In maybe 1/15 of a second, the SS Mont-Blanc, the pier, nearby buildings, they ceased to exist.
The largest man-made explosion in history up to that point?
By far. 2.9 kilotons. Nothing on the battlefields of World War I even came close.
The physics are just mind-boggling.
Almost incomprehensible. The temperature of the blast core hit an estimated 5,000 degrees Celsius, hotter than the surface of the sun.
And the water.
Instantly vaporized around the ship. The blast pressure physically pushed the harbor water away, creating a shockwave. For a moment, the seabed around Pier 6 was actually exposed, dry land where seconds before there was water.
And the pressure wave itself
moved faster than sound, over 1,000 meters per second. It hit the city like a physical wall, obliterated everything within about a half-mile radius, snapped huge, mature trees like twigs, twisted steel bridges, bent thick iron railway tracks like they were paper clips.
And the ship itself became projectiles.
Lethal shrapnel on a massive scale. Pieces of the Mont-Blanc were flung for miles. That famous example, the shank of her main anchor, weighing over half a ton, 1,140 pounds, was found 2.35 miles away, buried in the ground.
Unbelievable.
And a piece of her 90mm deck gun barrel landed 3.5 miles away over in Dartmouth. The sheer kinetic force was immense.
And then the water came back.
Right. As the displaced water rushed back into the void left by the blast, it created a huge wave. A tsunami, essentially.
How high?
Estimates vary, but perhaps up to 60 feet high in the narrowest parts of the harbor, it surged ashore.
Wiping out.
The Micmac First Nations community at Turtle Grove, on the Dartmouth side, they lived right near the water. Their settlement was just gone. And that same wave picked up the SS Emo, the ship that started it all, and threw it up onto the Dartmouth shoreline like a bath toy.
What was the immediate aftermath like? The scene?
Darkness. A bizarre, dark, oily rain started falling. It was vaporized fuel from the ship, soot, debris, all mixed together. It coated everything, the living and the dead. And looking up, this enormous mushroom cloud, a pyrocumulus cloud formed by the intense heat, rose miles into the sky, 3 miles high, visible for maybe 60 miles around.
But the defining horror, the unique signature of this explosion, was the glass.
Yes. Halifax became instantly the city of glass.
Because of all those spectators.
All those thousands of people watching from windows. When the blast wave hit, every window in a huge radius just shattered inwards, but not like normal broken glass. The pressure wave was moving so fast.
Supersonic speed.
Exactly. It turned the glass shards into tiny, lethal projectiles, flying inwards at incredible velocity, directly into the faces and eyes of the people watching.
The numbers, they're horrific.
Just devastating. Around 9,000 people injured in total. But the eye injuries were on a scale never seen before or since from a single event.
How many?
Doctors performed about 250 eye removals and nucleations in the days and weeks that followed, often under terrible conditions, makeshift hospitals, poor lighting, little anesthesia.
And permanent blindness.
41 people were left totally and permanently blind. Hundreds, maybe thousands more, suffered serious, life-altering eye injuries.
And this had a direct consequence, a legacy.
A huge one. The sheer scale of these eye injuries, the sudden need for specialized care and long-term support for the blind. It directly led to the creation of the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄, just a year later in 1918.
So this tragedy spurred the creation of a national institution.
Absolutely. It highlighted a massive gap in social services and provided the urgent impetus and probably the public support and funding needed to get it started.
What about the immediate medical response? The hospitals.
Overwhelmed instantly. And many were damaged by the blasts themselves. The main military hospital took a heavy hit. The Victoria General, the main civilian hospital, was overflowing within minutes.
So where did the injured go?
Everywhere. Makeshift hospitals popped up all over the city. The YMCA became one. St. Mary's College. Even social clubs, like the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄 tennis club, turned their spaces into wards and operating rooms.
Who staffed them?
Doctors, nurses, volunteers. Dalhousie University medical students were pressed into service, suddenly doing frontline trauma care. Even reports of senior high school students helping out with basic first aid.
And this chaos, this pressure,
Sure.
it led to medical advancements.
It really did, particularly in two areas. Burn treatment, especially for children, was one. Doctors had to figure out, on the fly, how to manage massive fluid loss and electrolyte imbalances in severely burned infants and toddlers. Their innovations advanced pediatric critical care.
And the other area?
Mass casualty response itself. Halifax became this unplanned, horrific laboratory for how to triage, treat, and manage thousands of casualties pouring in simultaneously with damaged infrastructure. The lessons learned there laid groundwork for modern disaster protocols we still use today.
Just when you think it couldn't get any worse, nature added another layer of cruelty.
Unbelievably cruel timing.
Yeah.
The day after the explosion, December 7th, as rescue efforts were just beginning, as survivors were huddling in the ruins, a massive blizzard hit.
A nor'easter, and nobody saw it coming.
No warning. Because of the war, there was strict censorship on weather reports transmitted from ships at sea. They didn't want to give U-boats any useful information. So Halifax was blind to the approaching storm.
How bad was it?
Really bad. It dumped about 40 centimeters. That's around 16 inches of heavy, wet snow. And the temperature plummeted. Wind chills down to -15 Celsius, which is about 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Bitterly cold.
What did the blizzard do to the rescue efforts?
Devastating impact. First, the snow covered the rubble. If people were still alive but trapped, their cries were muffled, they couldn't be seen. Many likely died of exposure who might otherwise have been found.
It made searching impossible.
Almost. It turned the entire disaster zone into this uniform, white, treacherous maze. Rescuers couldn't see debris, couldn't move easily. It slowed everything down horrifically.
And the homeless. 25,000 people.
25,000 people suddenly without shelter, many injured, most in shock. Now they're facing freezing temperatures and driving snow. The suffering is just unimaginable. People huddled in damaged buildings, trying to light fires, risking more danger.
Did it affect the incoming aid? Trains were coming, right?
Yes. Relief trains were mobilized incredibly quickly, especially from Boston, but also from other parts of Canada and the U.S.
Yeah.
Packed with doctors, nurses, medical supplies, food, blankets.
But the snow.
The snow created huge drifts, 6-8 feet deep in places. It stopped those vital relief trains in their tracks outside the city, delayed the arrival of critical help for hours, maybe even a day in some cases. Just agonizing delays when time was everything.
It's almost too much to comprehend. Was there any light in that darkness?
There was. Amidst all that horror, there are these incredible stories of survival. The most famous is probably Ashpan Annie.
Tell us about her.
Annie Liggins. She was just 23 months old, a toddler. A soldier searching the ruins on the second day after the blizzard had hit found her. She was alive, somehow sheltered under an overturned stove and maybe an ash can or bucket.
26 hours after the blast.
26 hours. She survived the explosion and the blizzard. She became this instant symbol of hope, you know, this tiny flicker of life found in the absolute desolation. Ashpan Annie.
That flicker of hope. It leads us to what happens next. After the immediate shock comes the anger, the need for answers, the need for someone to blame.
Absolutely. You can't have a disaster of this magnitude without a demand for accountability. The Rec Commissioner's inquiry started incredibly quickly, just a week later on December 13th.
What was its goal? Find the complex truth.
Well, officially, yes. But unofficially, there was immense pressure to provide a simple answer. A villain. The public was traumatized, furious. They needed someone to point the finger at.
And who became the target?
With Captain Frum and Pilot Hayes of the MO both dead in the blast, the focus naturally fell on the survivors from the ship that actually exploded, the Mont-Blanc crew.
Particularly the pilot, Francis Mackey.
Exactly. The official inquiry report came out in February 1918, pretty quickly, and it was blunt. It found the pilot, Mackey, and the captain, Lemedek, wholly responsible for violating the rules of the road.
Wholly responsible. No shared blame.
Not in that initial report. It put everything on the Mont-Blanc. And Mackey, the local pilot, the man with the 24-year spotless record, he became the scapegoat.
What happened to him?
He was arrested, charged with manslaughter, imprisoned for a time, and crucially, they stripped him of his pilot's license, Ruined his career, his reputation, his life, basically. His family suffered immensely.
Because the public needed a simple villain narrative.
It seemed so. The idea that maybe both experienced pilots made critical errors, that it was a series of unfortunate compounding mistakes that was too complex, too unsatisfying in the face of such loss.
But that wasn't the end of the legal story, was it?
No, thankfully. Mackey and Lamedek fought the verdict. The case went through appeals, first to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Did they succeed there?
No, the Supreme Court upheld the initial finding, although the judges were divided. But they didn't give up. They took the case even higher.
Where could they go from the Supreme Court of Canada?
Back then, the highest court of appeal for the British Empire was the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in London, so they appealed all the way to London.
And what did the Privy Council find?
Finally, years after the explosion, the Privy Council overturned the Canadian courts. They ruled that both ships were equally at fault.
Equally at fault. Why?
They recognized the MO's error speeding, being in the wrong lane, but they also recognized the Mont-Blanc's fault in not yielding or turning away sooner, sticking too rigidly to the rules perhaps. Shared responsibility.
So Mackey was eventually vindicated. Legally, at least.
Legally, yes. No one was ever successfully convicted of a crime related to the explosion, but it took years. Years where Mackey lived under that cloud of blame. It really highlights a societal need for a simple scapegoat after a tragedy, even when the truth is much messier.
While all this legal drama was unfolding, the city itself had to rebuild from absolute devastation.
And the response, the aid that poured in, was just phenomenal. Nationally, internationally. People were horrified by what happened and wanted to help.
You mentioned Boston earlier. Their response was particularly notable.
Hugely notable. Boston mobilized incredibly fast. That first relief train, fighting through the blizzard, packed with doctors, nurses, supplies, it was a lifeline. And Halifax never forgot it.
That connection is still alive today, right?
Very much so. We'll come back to that. But first, the physical rebuilding. The Richmond district, where Pier 6 was, it was just wiped out, gone.
So they had a blank slate, essentially.
They did. And they didn't just rebuild what was there, they completely reimagined it. Out of the rubble rose a new neighborhood called the Hydrostone.
Hydrostone? What is that?
It refers to the building material. They built rows of sturdy, quite beautiful homes using these distinctive gray concrete blocks called hydrostone blocks. They were designed to be fire-resistant.
So, learning from the disaster.
Absolutely. This wasn't just putting up houses quickly. It was a pioneering urban planning project. Many consider the Hydrostone district to be Canada's first real public housing development, focused on safety, resilience, and community design.
Are the houses still there?
Oh, yes. The Hydrostone district is still a vibrant, desirable neighborhood in Halifax today. It stands as this living monument to survival and rebuilding. Someone beautifully described the houses as looking like bomb shelters disguised as dollhouses.
That's a great image. From a city of glass to a city of stone.
A city literally built from its own ashes, with resilience baked into its design.
And that brings us back to Boston and the final legacy.
That enduring bond forged in the crisis. Since 1971, every single year, the province of Nova Scotia selects a huge, beautiful Christmas tree.
The Boston Christmas tree.
Exactly. They cut it down, transport it all the way to Boston, and it's lit up on Boston Common as the city's official Christmas tree.
As a thank you.
As a perpetual thank you gift. A symbol of gratitude for the help Boston sent in Halifax's absolute darkest hour after the explosion and during the blizzard. It's a really powerful, living tradition.
So the final tally. Nearly 2,000 dead, 9,000 injured. A city brought to its knees.
But it rebuilt. Physically. Psychologically, defined now not just by the tragedy, but by the memory, the resilience, and that lasting compassion shown in the aid efforts.
Okay, let's try to synthesize this. When you look back at the Halifax explosion, what are the key takeaways, the factors that really amplified this disaster?
I think we can boil it down to four main things we've discussed. First, that normalization of danger. The city just stopped seeing the risk that was right in front of it.
Right. Second,
the invisible cargo. The fact the Mont-Blanc wasn't flagged meant no one, apart from her crew, knew the scale of the threat drifting into their harbor.
Third, the communication breakdown.
Yeah, the tragedy of language. Those desperate French warnings from the crew just didn't compute in the busy English-speaking port. A fatal misunderstanding.
And fourth, the spectator effect.
That collective, fatal curiosity. Thousands turning towards the danger, pressing against windows, turning a terrible explosion into a mass blinding event.
If you connect those dots, it seems the real danger wasn't just the TNT or the picric acid. It was something more human.
I think so. It was that rigidity. That clash of professional wills in the Narrows. You had two competent, experienced pilots.
Mackey on the Mont-Blanc, Hayes on the MO.
Both locked into their own logic. I have the right of way. No, I have the right of way, and I'm not moving. Neither willing to deviate, to be flexible, to maybe break a minor rule to avoid a major catastrophe.
Sticking to the book until the book became irrelevant.
Exactly. Their refusal to yield, born from professional pride or adherence to procedure, directly led to the collision that lit the fuse.
So here's a thought to leave with you, our listener. Think about this. How many failures today, maybe big ones in business or politics, maybe smaller ones in our own lives or workplaces, aren't caused by outright incompetence?
Yeah, not by people who don't know what they're doing.
But by situations where you have two or maybe more smart, capable, logical people or groups, each absolutely convinced they're right, locked into their own procedures, their own lane.
And completely unwilling to yield, to adapt, to compromise, or to break protocol, even when common sense or looming disaster screams for flexibility.
That failure of professional courtesy, maybe? That inability to see the bigger picture beyond the rule book.
Turned a low speed bump into a 2.9 kiloton nightmare. Something to definitely mull over as you navigate your own, hopefully less explosive Narrows this week.